One of the powerful things I want you guys to know is that the brand hub is where you think about like your control center. It's where your logos, your fonts, your colors, your templates, everything is organized in one place. It's where you set the guidelines and the rules. Your brand hub is also where it helps you to be consistent. I call it like the foundation. It's where you get things started, right? And we're just gonna walk through that now. We are now on the home page of Canva. We are on the home page of Canva, and you should be quite familiar with this. That's the truth. You should be quite familiar with what this looks like. And what you're going to do is on the left hand panel, you are going to navigate to brand. And once you select brand, that is where your brand hub is. That's where you have your brand, what we call it a hub, everything, your brand kit, your brand template, your brand controls. Like I said, I have done quite a few videos just talking about this. And like you see here, I have my brand kit for, clients I've worked with, my personal brand. I've even created brand kits for just Canva templates that I've created because I've created a persona for these templates. And so for your brand, whether you're on the free version or the pro version or the teens version of Canva, you want to ensure you set up a brand kit. You don't take it for granted that you need a brand kit. I like to say it is the foundation to help you get started. And so I have the brand hub here. I won't walk you through like, setting up the brand hub and that kind of thing because I already have videos on that and it's linked in the description. But what I'll be doing is just clicking on or choosing a brand kit that I already have. And then I'm just going to walk you through all the elements that is included here and the things that you should look for and ensure you have in your very own brand kit. If you have the free version of Canva, you can just set up the one brand kit and you work from there. Like I said, it's the foundation. So one of the key things you need to have is your logo. If you don't like have an official logo created or made, you can have a mark, right? Otherwise, when you're starting out, depending on where you are on the journey, of course, you need to have all the assets that makes your brand have a strong presence, right? So that means having a logo. And so this brand is for a woman summit, right? It's called the Rise Woman Summit. And so I've included all the logos here, have different colors here that is included. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and just name the different logos, right? That helps you just to be able to easily just be organized and, structure your thing properly. And then you have your color palette. So we can select on the left hand tab here. I can select logos. Now I'm going to select colors, which is your color palette. This means the colors that you will be using for your brand. Every time you design something in Canva, every time you're going to roll out something new, you should have elements of your color palette. And the key thing here is that you are seeing like codes. These are called X codes, which means even though you might say, yes, I use purple for my brand, you need to know the X codes. These are the code. This is the code, right, for the color, the shade purple that I'm using for this brand. The same thing for the orange and so on and so forth. You can have this in a different document. I've talked about just having a brand guideline and just having everything in just a document where you're just like, listen, if you're going to hire a designer, if you're going to work with someone to design, you need to also share that with them so you can maintain the brand consistency. And then we're looking at fonts. Fonts is, this is where you're coming to choosing the font that matches your brand personality and style. I talk a lot about that as well. I have videos on my channel just talking about the importance of having a brand personality. What does your brand represent? Who are you talking to? What's the emotions you want to evoke? And so for this brand, I've chosen like a font. This font is called Abigail, which I purchased on Creative Market. But this just gives more like a feminine, unique style. And that is what the brand represents as well. So I chose this font as a title, subtitle, and heading. And then, of course, I have like subtext or sub-heading fonts that I utilize, like Poppins, right? The name's not very important right now, but what you want to do is to ensure you're maintaining consistency using like 1 to 3 fonts the most. You don't need to have multiple fonts at all, or you don't need to have too many fonts when you're creating your designs. All right. And one of the things I need to point out to you before I move ahead is that you can upload your font if you purchased a font from like an external platform or marketplace like Creative Market. Of course, you can upload the fonts here. Always just be mindful that you can use it for commercial use if that's the purpose. Always be aware of the license used, and you can add like your text style and add your guidelines. So this is where you can say, hey, this is the guideline for the font. This is where you use it. This is how to use it. This is when to use it. This is very important. Again, you might not have a designing background. So this is something that would be ideal for you to work with a designer on. Also, this is where you can say, hey, ideally, this font is where I want to use it. And then you can always double check to see if it's the best usage, right? So that's for fonts. Now we have brand voice. This isn't new to Canva, but it is an area or just an asset that I think a lot of us need to be more mindful of. And this comes into play with our messaging. Before, so heavily talking about branding and that kind of thing, I oftentimes would overlook messaging. I'll focus more on just the visual side of things. But the more you're building out your brand and growing, messaging is a key part. And Canva has realized that and included brand voice as part of their brand kit because, hey, this is the tone of how you're going to communicate when you're creating just the copy for your design. You need to have this in place, and you'll see how this is used just throughout Canva, whether you're using the magic right, whether you're doing a presentation, whether you're doing a video, whatever you're creating, the brand voice can be used all across in Canva. So you can go in, tell exactly what you want your brand voice to sound like and feel like, how you're going to communicate with your audience. And then this is an important element, which is photos. Do not take it for granted. Be very clear about what your brand is about. It should match your personality and your style. And so in terms of photos, you want to ensure that you have photos that evoke the similar things. So if your brand is about trust and sincerity, then of course you should have some images that reflect somewhat of smiling and happiness and joy, that kind of thing. So for this photo, if you don't have any photos like on, probably you don't have any photos on your desktop, maybe you don't have any brand photos, but you're going to use stock images, you can one link it to a folder, which means that's why if having folders in Canva is so important. I have a video talking about that, but just to touch on it briefly, is that you can find stock images on Canva, create a folder, add those photos to the folder, and hey, call it that. These folders are a part of the brand. And then the other thing is that you want to, what would I say, link it in this section. So what I went ahead and what I did for this was to link it. So once I select this, what you're seeing here is that I have a folder with all my photo that I have. These photos are stock photos from Pixie Stock. It's one of my favorite, platforms to utilize that has stock images of Black women, of women of color, that just matches lifestyle and business. So if that's something you want to use in terms of stock images, you can check out Pixie Stock. But really just being able to link my photos, but you're also seeing here that I have some graphics here. If I wanted to be more granular, then of course I could have gone ahead and created another folder that separates my graphics from my photos, just to put it lightly. Then I am going back over to my brand kit where I have icons. This just helps to bring about like some personality and uniqueness to your brand. So for instance, you're designing something, you need to use an icon, or you need to add like a really creative touch or element. This is something you can have as well. And then one of the newest, assets as part of the brand kit that Canva has included is charts. Canva has just been rolling out a lot of features. And so for your brand, chances are you're going to be creating presentations and you need to do charts. So what they have gone ahead and say, hey, for your chart style, you can just go ahead and include the colors that you want and they can restyle it as necessary. So this is what your brand kit looks like. These are the assets you need to have. You can go ahead and share it with someone else if you need to, that kind of thing. So I'm going back now to brand templates. Now, brand templates is where you go ahead and you have created a design, whether you're creating from scratch or you're going to use Canva templates and make it your own, matching it back to just your visuals and just having something to help you to be consistent and cohesive. So this is what it looks like for my brand, Carey Digital. And then I'm going to just walk you through something that I already created for this brand that we're using, which is Rise Women Summit, and show you exactly how you can just create a brand template of your own, but more importantly, how you can make it look more cohesive across the board. And then I don't want to go without mentioning brand controls. If you are working with like multiple, what I say, team members, whether you're a small team, we're going to hire a virtual assistant, sorry, if you're going to be just onboarding anybody at all to just assist you, then you can have some restrictions here, right? If you have Canva Teams, this is perfect because you can set the restrictions, restrict your team to just using your brand colors only. So no matter what they do, no matter what they're designing, then of course they would have to be using these colors, and there's literally a restriction. Then it's the same thing for fonts, and you also have the bandwidth to restrict or make approval. So before they publish or share any design, you can say, hey, allow them to get approval before they publish a design. All right. So if you have any questions about this, you can go ahead and just comment below, and I'll be glad to answer your question about anything related to the brand kit, brand template, and brand controls. Now let's get into the more exciting part of things. You're seeing here is that I've already created a graphic for this brand. So I'm going to select it. It was an Instagram carousel that I created. This format looks a little different. So if designing isn't really a thing, but you're designing Canva, so this is just another way you can create carousels. I design it in this way. Then I download it and just split it using an external tool. So this is what it looked like. I was showing the process of content creation, but really this is what it looked like. And there's just another one here. All right. So let's talk about it. So Canva rolled out Visual Suite 2.0. Visual Suite 2.0 is just a major thing right now. It's where productivity meets creativity. And what does that even mean? So I know for a lot of you guys, when you're designing in Canva, you have one design for an Instagram carousel. You have another design for your reel. You have another design for probably your website or a landing page. Then you have another design for presentations. You don't have to do that again, right? You don't have to do that again. You don't have to be switching between all the designs. And of course, they have made it easier over the years in terms of how you could incorporate designs into like a new design. But this is just amazing. And what I'm talking about is being able to do multiple design in one design. And I am going to select pages because that's where I'm seeing my page thumbnails. And if I select page one, this is where you're seeing my Instagram carousel. If I wanted another design similar to this, I could simply add page, and what you're seeing is a similar layout and design, structure ready for me to get started. However, I don't want that. What I want is a new design, and this can literally be from Canva Sheets, doc, presentation, whiteboard, social media, any social media platform you can think about, a video, graphics to be created for print, websites, and as you see more, I can do something entirely custom here. So as part of just maintaining your consistency, one of the things you want to be mindful is just like, hey, what are the key assets do I need? You have to be thinking about what are the key assets I need to be sharing or creating. So for social media, if your main platform is on Instagram, then you'll be like, okay, the content format I'll be choosing is Reels, Carousel, Stories. So literally, you can use the same document and create multiple designs, creating the Reels, Carousels, and the Stories, which I'm going to show you how to do. And then if, for instance, you're also on YouTube, then you can do the same thing in that same document. And the amazing thing is that you can just download based on the pages. So there's no limitation. If you want to do a website as well, it's pretty much the same thing. All right. So what I'll be creating here for you is a social media. Let's choose a story. Hold on. Let's go back. Social media, Instagram story. Perfect. So let me delete the first design here. All right, so we have our Instagram store. It's a blank canvas. Listen, I understand. Maybe you cannot design from scratch. You don't want the stress of designing from scratch. Simply on the left hand tab, select design. Then you're going to type in story. So for this, it's an event. So you can be very specific and say event story. So you can just go in and find a template that is easy for you to tweak. You want to choose a template that you know you can easily replicate or tweak. I'm going to choose this one. Right, so this one is for a course, but of course you can always change the graphics and make some tweaks. Here's the amazing thing: once you have set up your brand kit, which is the foundation, you can simply go to the left hand tab, select brand, and then you're going to select color palette. The color palette is, once you start shuffling it, you realize the colors start to change, which is amazing. So you choose a color. Now you realize that, let me zoom in some more. Now you realize that, okay, I have the brand colors, but it doesn't have my brand. There's nothing. My aesthetics is not there. I don't have my images. I don't have the fonts. You simply select any font of your liking, and then you select the toolbar where you see the font option here. And then you're going to scroll all the way down until you see your brand kit, right? And you see Rise Women Summit. I can go ahead and choose my font here, which is Abigail, which I said this is for my heading. And I can say change all, which means for every font that was TT4s, it's going to be changed to now Abigail, right? And then I'm going to go ahead now and change any other font that I want to change out. And you can go ahead and do the same thing here. Now, for this image here, well, this is not a part of our brand. However, in our brand kit, we do realize that we have linked it to some photos, right? Some folder, the photos folder. I'm going to select that. Then I'm going to scroll all the way down and find one of these images to simply replace it with. To go ahead and be like, okay, how can I add some more elements to this? Now, the key important thing here in this folder that you see I've called the photos is where I have other assets that makes my brand unique to me. And these assets are what I call my floral assets. So you might have something different for you. It might be an abstract shape or some different brand elements. And I can just go ahead and just add just some different elements here to make my design unique. I was like, okay, I need to have a reel. And you're going to go now to add page type. Then I'm going back to social media. Then I'm going to be looking for an Instagram reel. Now we have an Instagram reel here. Again, you do not have to create it from scratch. You don't have to create it from scratch. I have here is for a Sunday brunch. So I'm selecting this option here, and I can go ahead and just make some swap outs. So this is just a pretty simple basic design, because what I'm going to show you in just a few is just that you can save this brand template so that every time you're designing, you come back here and you make the necessary tweaks. When you're creating and using brand templates, you want to keep the designs as simple as possible so that every time you go back, you're not thinking about like, oh my God, there's so many elements I need to change and move around. All right. So this is what we have here. Here. So let's do a quick look and run through. Let's see how things are looking cohesively. All right, so I'm going to just go big with my design. This is just amazing that you can utilize and create multiple designs to maintain your brand consistency and cohesiveness. Now, I am just going to touch on one last thing before we jump in, and I'm going to show you just how to save your brand template so that when you come back here, you just have this level of consistency. And if, for instance, you're like, hey, I'm going to start doing something else, I'm going to add, maybe I want a website or a landing page, then you come back here and you create the landing page. So before we wrap up, let's jump into having a website. What you're seeing here is a layout for a website already. And I can just go ahead and choose a template. So I'm going to say an event landing page. So let's do a quick run through. What have we been talking about so far? What have I been really showing you? What I have been showing you is that one, you should have your brand kit set up ready to use. Two, you should be using it consistently. It's a foundation for creating your graphics. Three, it helps you to maintain consistency and cohesiveness. So when you're designing, once you create a template, once you select a template, it's the first thing you should go to when you are going to be designing. Go to your brand kit, change out the colors. You might not be a designer, you don't want to be a designer. That is totally fine. But if you're using Canva, the key important thing for you is to ensure you're maintaining brand cohesiveness, consistency. When you're building a brand, you need to have your personality. You need to let that show and evoke through your graphics so that you don't look inconsistent, you don't look all over the place. And then what I've been doing, for the past few minutes is just really walking you through how you can use multi-design to help you to see what it looks like when you have created multiple designs, and you don't have to be switching between different designs, but having a multi design, I would say, where you can just go ahead and see what everything looks like. I think this is just really amazing. I can go, hey, this is all my pages. I can just make it really big, and I just slide through, see all my designs here, and realize, okay, there's some cohesiveness, there's some consistency. One of the things I like to do, if there's an element from one page that I like, I will just take it and drag it over. But we're not going into all of that now. So I just walked you through the basics of everything. If you want a deeper dive into brand kits, learning more about its importance, of course, there are a lot of videos on my channel just talking about branding. I talk about branding mistakes. I share all these things because I know, as someone who is building your brand, the key thing is not just to be posting on social media, it's not just to be out there, but really to create in a way that is consistent, visually appealing, and professional, because consistency helps to build trust, right? You want people to spend with you, you want people to work with you. Have and maintain a level of consistency. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comment below. If you're watching the replay, again, ask me all the questions. No, before we wrap up, let me just show you quickly. I've shown you all these designs. I've showed you that you can, use multiple design, add all your brand colors, all the elements, all the things. But what if when I'm designing, I need to use back something from this? Go to publish as template and the top navigation bar just beside share, and you're going to say publish. Once you select publish, your design has been published as a brand template. You can either copy the link to share it or just to view it, or you can go to the folder.